Hello, my name is Michelle Howard, Corpus Christi cross stitcher, and I'd like to welcome you to my very first Flosstube. I'm really excited to be here, and I'll tell you why. I have a desire to form a in-person social group of cross stitchers in the Corpus Christi, Texas area. And when I went searching for such a group, there's some quilting groups around. I go to those meetings. And one of them's Quilting and Needleworks group, and they tend to focus on quilting. But I haven't found anything specifically for cross stitching. And so I'd like to become involved that way. I'd like to get a group of people that are interested in meeting, having lunch, fellowship, sharing cross stitch, of course, and just that in-person connection, just to become a little bit more involved. I love Flosstube. I love making comments. Love it even more when I get a comment back from a Flosstuber, and you know, just enjoy the social interaction, listening while I'm cross stitching or quilting or whatever it is I'm doing for the day. Sometimes cleaning, but I just want to take it one step further. I recently quit a part-time job, so I have more time now. And so I just want to become more involved, and this is where a lot of Flosstubers are. And so not only can I become more involved at a local level with in-person groups, but I can also become more involved with the Flosstube community, which is state, national, international. You know, just lots going on out there, and I want to be part of it. So thank you for stopping by today. I'm going to go right into my stitching. I'm going to start with my works in progress, my whips. And right now, my main work in progress is Anniversaries of the Heart by Blackbird Designs. And this month, I'm working on Swan Lake. And I've been able to do one a month. I try to keep up with that. And I'm really getting close to the deadline here, so I still have my needle in because I was working on it late last night, and I'll pick it up as soon as I do. But I'm only going to show the Swan Lake today. I'll show the rest of it some other day, but it just seemed like a lot for my first video. But here's my progress. Guess I can make it smaller and not have to do it that way. So I am of course dedicating each of these to the memory or the honor of somebody in our family, mostly ancestors, mostly memories. This is in memory of my husband's paternal grandparents, and his grandparents had a farm in Carrizo Springs, Texas, which is where we lived for about 40 years before coming to Corpus Christi. I'm relatively new here. And so they lived, they had a farm. And now one of the things about Swan Lake is that it has the swans down here. And I guarantee you there's no swans in Carrizo Springs, Texas. So I'm going to add, I've found some deer motifs. There are plenty of deer, white-tailed deer. There's quail. It's a brush country, which means cactus grow really well there, and so do mesquite trees. Cactus because they can store their water, as cactus tend to do, and mesquite trees because they can grow their roots right down, all the way down to the 80 to 200 feet that you have to go to find water in Carrizo Springs area. So anyway, Lots of other wildlife and wildflowers. I'll probably be talking about those as time goes on, but I wanted to show you my progress on there. I'm not using the called for linen. This linen is a 32 count. Actually, I think it's a 36 count because it comes out to 18 stitches per inch. And it's a raw linen. I do not know what kind of linen it is. I do know that I got it in San Antonio. There used to be a shop in San Antonio, Texas. And that shop's been closed for a few years now. And that's where I got the linen. Otherwise, it's DMC colors. I am doing my own colorway, my own colors, because the colors that the pattern calls for kind of blend in. They don't really stand out in with this color of linen. So there's my progress. I have a couple more days to finish this, and you can see I'm working on the name 1/1. The deer motifs will also be 1/1, which is necessary because of the scale of the pattern that I was able to find. But that'll be a finish next time you see me. And my next work in progress is not originally a cross stitch pattern. This is an embroidery pattern. Sunday mornings. This is a gal who lives in Arizona. My daughter bought this. It's called Retro Sunset, and you can see it's embroidery. I tried to do the embroidery. It came out. It just didn't look good at all. It's just not my gift or my strength. So this is cute young lady named Crystal Peralta from Arizona, Sunday morning shop owner and creator. And so she provides the directions, everything in the kit, the fabric, the DMC floss. And so anyway, I was failing miserably at the embroidery. So I decided to put it on Aida and create it like a fill-in pattern. And start cross stitching it. And I will tell you, because these colors are so pretty, it's been fun to stitch. And it's on Aida. I just had this piece of Aida in my stash, so I don't really know the details about the Aida, but it is a 28 count, and I am doing a 2/2, 2 strands over 2 on the threads of the Aida. And so you can see those pretty colors. There's a couple more of the browns that I'm going to need in order to do the fill-in on the mountains. These are the mountains. But it's really turned out pretty. And I do blend. So you can see I'll have some of the threads where they're the solid color. But then on some of them, as I'm transitioning into areas where the colors are changing, I'll go ahead and combine the 2 threads and stitch the blended threads. And I like working with blended threads. I think the effect's really pretty, but this is coming out really. And I do use this more for a car stitch or a travel stitch. I just have a hard time stitching on linen during traveling, bumpy roads and such. And so I still want to be able to stitch. That's not a question, you know, it's just a question of how am I going to make it work. And so that's one way that I make it work. So another work in progress that I have is a Mill Hill kit by Curly Girl Design. And the reason I picked this, it says on the bottom of it, just wait until you see what is possible when you shine your little light on the world. Well, this is because of one of my granddaughters. These designs are perfect for little girls and big girls. And here's my progress. Everything's included in the kit. It's a Mill Hill kit, and I'm so sorry about the wrinkle in this, but you can see my progress. And I've got still quite a ways to go. I'm more than halfway through, I know, but this is solid fill in. And it's a, let's see if the details are on here. It's a linen from Witchell Imports, 28 count. It also includes beads and the DMC floss that goes with it. And so the kits are real nice. And I got those kits when I first started back into cross stitching. Of course, I looked for a local shop in Corpus Christi and there wasn't one. We do have the box stores. We have Michael's. We have Hobby Lobby where you can get some supplies. But when looking for something special, you know, you kind of want to go to one of those specialty stores like local needle shops, and there just wasn't one. So then I started looking in Texas, and because I didn't have all the supplies readily available, I just started ordering some kits from Amazon, and so that's where I got that from. And it's handy because if you don't have all the supplies to start with, you can at least get started on a cross stitch kit if you order the full kit, and it comes with everything, even the needle. So, you know, handy. And then you can just get your stitching on, which is the main thing. I mean, we do all this because we love to stitch. So my next one, Whip in Progress, and this is one of the funnest ones. This one is why I'm not as far along as I should be on my Anniversaries of the Heart for this month, is because I've been working on the Hawaiian Sea Turtle from Salty Stitcher Designs. And this is Sulky threads. And it's the first time I've been stitching on, I've used Sulky threads. I'm enjoying the Sulky threads. Here's my progress. These two threads, the blue and the green, are variegated. So it's real fun. You can see I still have mine because I've been stitching on this every chance I get. And with the Sulky threads, I'm using one thread, which is nice. It's fun. I don't have to worry about twisting threads and all of that. And they're a little bit thicker, so they don't. And this is a 26 count linen. I don't know where it's from. I suspect from maybe Michael's, one of their linens that you buy in a little folded up package. But sea turtles are kind of my thing. So in Corpus Christi, Texas, the National Seashore, we have a national shoreline that is where some of the turtles lay their eggs. And so then the turtles, you know, are protected. And so that's a protected area at certain times of the year so that those eggs can hatch. And then they have events with experts who come and they help those turtles get into the water. You know, because when you're little and you're trying to find your way to the water across a big old thing of sand, well, you might get lost. So they make sure that they don't get lost, and they make sure that they get into and that they make sure that along the way that the nests are don't become victims of other wildlife or even humans who might just be curious and not really know what they're doing. So very big deal in Corpus Christi, Texas is the sea turtles and their release. So here's that variegated blue, and here's over here the variegated green, and then there's some other colors that aren't variegated but that will be part of the border. And so anyway, I'm enjoying stitching that. It's just something that just is really fun to be stitching a turtle, and I have a lot of turtle patterns. So those are the Sulky Petite threads, and I'm stitching that 1/2 on that linen. So speaking of sea turtles, I do have a finish because I always have a sea turtle thing going on. That's one of the ones that I always want to have going on. And so this pattern I bought over the last summer from Garon Stitchery. And this is Ink Circles Turtles All the Way Down. Well, you know, with a name like that, you have to buy it. I mean, Turtles All the Way Down. What a cute, cute, clever name. And Turtles All the Way Down means this. So I stitched it on the called for band of linen. It's called Celery. The color is celery. And I did buy this band of linen from Garon Stitchery as well as the pattern. And, you know, the name's not enough. You just have to go down and look at these greens and blues and golds. And then all of a sudden you get to Mr. Unique Turtle here. Mr. Unique Turtle. Sometimes my southern accent gets a little slurred, words a little slurred together. Anyway, Mr. Unique Purple Turtle. I mean, I know that most turtles aren't that color, but who doesn't? Who can't resist a purple turtle? And then you go back down, all the way down to the bottom, and itsy bitsy teeny weeny turtles at the very bottom. I mean, look at that. And then the littlest one is stitched with that purple again. So, couldn't resist that pattern. Loved stitching it. Love my turtle patterns. They're just fun. And we have that unique thing going on here. So that's a finish. Another recent finish of mine is, and it's a very old pattern, is this pattern from Dimensions. It's not a cross stitch pattern. It's a crewel embroidery pattern from Dimensions, copyright 1978. And I did not start this pattern. My sister had this pattern in my dad's things. My dad passed away in 1986, and this had been sitting in storage at her house all that time. She gave it to me like last fall in 2022. And so it was almost all completed. And what I love about it is if you look close, you can see how he was very careful to get that texture in there with those, that's wool embroidery, that's wool yarn. And you can see all the texture and all the little, and the beautiful eyes, the whiskers, all that, you know, look at the cotton. And then down here, it's DMC, the little, I think they're called Lazy Daisy stitches. And then some French knots in there. So I had to do the outline stitching. He had been pretty sick, and so even though he passed away in 1986, I think this was probably done in the early 80s when he felt a little bit better. And so the outline stitching hadn't been done. You can see the dark stitching around the cat, the little toes of the little kitten faces, and then their little toes, and all of that. So I was able to complete it by doing the back stitching. Now the other thing about it is, and I left a little piece of it, is that it had a big stain on it. And that's the color of the stain. And that I had, you know, I just did some research to try to figure out how I could get it out, because I knew the fabric was old and I probably didn't want to be too rough on it. So in my research, I found this substance here, Mama's Miracle Linen Soak. And you get that at www.mamasmiracle.com. Actually, I got it off, I'll have to put it in the description notes, but I got it off of Amazon, and Shelly sent this to me. She wrote a handwritten note, and it just, I couldn't find it anywhere this morning. And she sent a beautiful little card. But let me tell you, The thing is when I got it, I read the fine print and it said you can't use this on wool. Well, the yarn is wool. So I thought about it for a couple of days and settled on sprinkling a little bit of the powder over the stain, because it was actually pretty prominent right above right in this area here. And I sprinkled a little bit of Mama's Miracle powder on there, and then I put a paper towel on top of it, folded up a paper towel, put it on top of it, and poured boiling water over it so that it would hold the boiling water in that paper towel, and then get that soak into that powder and see if it would get the stain out. And it took a couple of days, and I noticed that it was getting fainter. So I think over a period of 4 or 5 days, I just kept it in my kitchen, and I kept, 3 or 4 times a day, I would add some of that powder, add some more boiling water from my teapot, handy. And and then eventually it just kind of kept fading and fading. It's still there. I can see it. I couldn't see it when I was holding it up to y'all, but I can still see it. So I might give it another round, just to see if I can get it out a little bit more. So when I get it into the natural sunlight, then I can notice that it's there. So I'd like to get it all, and then I'll put it in a nice frame and under some glass, because that wool, I think, needs to be protected. It's pretty old right now. And so, but that was kind of cool. And I'll tell you what surprised me is I got a little feelings, because I got into some feelings because I was actually stitching on something that my dad had worked really hard on, had in his hands many years ago. I haven't done the math. I'm not quick enough to do it right now. So, but I haven't seen him in person since 1986. And this was a real pleasant, nice kind of a feeling that I got sharing that with him. So it just was special. So speaking of my dad, obviously he influenced me on my stitching. Another influence in my, oh heck, look, here it is, underneath papers. And look at this pretty hand. I mean, she drew little pictures, she wrote a note, she pointed out where I could get more information. So yes, Shelly from Mama's Miracles, Shelly Stewart, mamasmiracles.com. Anyway, I very reasonable, and obviously does what it says it's going to do, and appreciate the detailed directions that tell you what fabrics you can use it on and what you can't. So worked out very nicely for me, and I hope you'll give her a try. So yeah, so my mother was a big influence in my world of sewing. My mother mostly sewed. There were 6 of us. We needed new clothes. At that time, it was a good way to get the latest fashions at a reasonable price. And so she was a big seamstress. She also was a big supporter of the parent-teacher organizations at our schools. And so one of the things she did when I was in junior high is she started making these dolls. And you remember Holly Hobby was big in the 70s. So here's an old pattern. This isn't the original one from my mother. This is, I got this from eBay. These were made out of white opaque stockings. And then she made everything from the little bloomers and slip and shoes to the dress, the pinafore, the hat. She did the face with the blush, powder blush, and eyeliner for freckles, and then embroidered. I think the eyes might have been little button eyes, but she embroidered the eyebrows and the little mouth on there and the little nose. And then you use transparent thread to get that little effect where the indent on the face, to shape the face. So I remember we even made a couple of these, me and my sister, probably for gifts for our friends. But the reason I bring up this pattern and that influence is because this was my very first needlework. And again, it's a simplicity pattern from the 70s. And I actually did one of these, completed the whole thing. I was very young. I was probably almost to high school, not maybe late junior high. But we would move. We moved several times. Mom would try to coincide our moves at the end of the school year between before the other school year started. So we would have summers. And even though there were 6 of us, we had plenty to keep us entertained among ourselves. We were really good at that. You know, I was just young and needed to keep busy. And obviously I liked doing this even then. And so I remember sitting out on my front porch and stitching this. I remember having it well into about 10 years ago. Anyway, I don't have it anymore. And that's a whole nother story. But that's quite an accomplishment for a 12, 13-year-old child. And so each of these patchworks have a different kind of stitch. So they're all stitched a little differently. I do remember that. And so that's the stitch I remember first. And another one, this is my grandmother's quilt. My grandmother quilted for us, and we're the grandkids, the great-grandkids, and even some of the great-great-grandkids got a quilt from her. She quilted well into her early 90s. And so I keep hung up because my grandmother also taught me to knit, and I was just a quiet person who liked to read and do things with needlework. And so that's what I did. I do have a couple of finishes that are framed, and these are old finishes, but they're recently framed. So that's one of the things that Flosstube does, is it kind of puts you in gear to kind of get some things finished, a motivation, as I guess you could call it, to get some things finished that you might not normally, or that I've been letting sit for a while. So anyway, I have Mary Engelbreit. Again, this is probably from the 80s. As a matter of fact, there's a copyright on it. Well, this says 2004, so the early 2000s. And it's called Santa and Baby. It's a Mary Engelbreit pattern, and the kit is from Busilla. And I bought the kit, so it had everything in it. The 14 count Ada cotton embroidery floss. It doesn't say that it's DMC. And then it even had these color mats and everything, but that's long since been lost. And so what I did was I took my piece over to Michael's. It's a perfect 5x7, so it's real easy to find a mat and a frame, and so I can do it myself. I'm a big do-it-yourselfer. I just like doing things myself. Some of you probably relate to that, but I also don't have a problem getting help when I need it. I know there's a little bit of a glare from my natural sunlight. But you can see this beautiful green mat, and how well it goes with the green in his mittens. And I'm a fan of green. Green's my favorite color in various shades. You can also see some green up in his holly that brings out. And look at those beautiful reds and that blue sky. Just lovely. And who doesn't like Mary Engelbreit Santa face and that sweet little newborn baby? What's not to love? So then I also just bought a set of these frames, because I have 2 of these. I'll show you the other one in a minute. And I just like that wood grain kind of a look. So anyway, Santa and Baby. Got that one framed and ready to put out whenever I decide it's time to decorate for Christmas. And so I told you I have 2 of these. Here's another Mary Engelbreit designer, Busilla kit, and here's the December Santa. Again, those same greens and reds and blues. And here's the, again, it was a complete kit. So the Ada came with it. And I lived in Carrizo Springs, Texas when I bought these. Very isolated community in Texas. It's close to Mexico, but not really close to any major cities. We were 120 miles from San Antonio, 80 from Laredo, and 45 from the border. And the border town is Eagle Pass. So there was no Stitch, some DMC around until Walmart stopped carrying it. So anyway, I don't know where I got these kits, but I did buy the kit because of the convenience of it. And again, that pretty green and his green mittens again, and hugging that little, he's got a little snowman, snow baby in his arms, and then the little cute snow man on the side, the pretty blue sky. Yeah, Mary Engelbreit designs are just so joyful and positive. So stitching them, I feel good when I'm stitching, but especially when I'm stitching something that I love. And so Mary Engelbreit's kind of a favorite because of her positive message and outlook. Her designs show it. So those are the two finishes I have. I have a couple other finishes, but they're not cross stitch. I'm also a machine embroideryist, and so I finished these quilts last week. I started them October 1st. These are actually Christmas quilts from a pattern called Cup of Cheer from the Kimberbell, who are known for their machine embroidery. And this is an Advent quilt, so it's got numbers on it. So on each number, there's something to do. Like here's some Velcro on this number 2 on this mug. So this is a mug of hot cocoa, so you put little white balls on there, like marshmallows. And then this one is Cup of Cheer, so there's a cup of hot cocoa that you Velcro on day 5. And then snowflakes. And you can see here if you look close, I do the machine quilting. I machine quilt the batting before I put the embroidery on there or the appliques. And then I add another layer of batting and the backing. I sandwich that in after all of that's done. Here's another pocket. This one's a present, so you would wrap something up in the ribbon. And so it's called an Advent quilt, or getting ready for Christmas quilt. And I picked the colors because that's what my daughter likes at her house, and this is going to go to her house so my grandchildren can enjoy it. And I will put a picture because I can't get the whole thing in my small space right now. But it's a full-sized quilt, and I loved making it, and my grandkids love it even more than I loved making it. So I have 2 daughters with kids at their home, so they each need a quilt for December to count down the days to Christmas. And so here's my second Cup of Cheer, and this one you can see has the little Velcro piece on it. These have to be made also, so I had to make those, and then you have to attach all the little embellishments. You can hear bells. Bells are added one day. And so anyway, it's a great interactive, beautiful quilt. You can see the machine, and then on the back I do the stitch in the ditch. And this is my other daughter lives on ranch land in Pleasanton, Texas. And so she got the deer because that's what's on ranch land in Texas, right? It's deer. and favorite of ours, favorite wildlife of ours. And so those are my other two finishes, and I'm anxious to start a spring quilt. I have a spring quilt pattern that I'm anxious to start with, but right now I'm working on some quilt squares for a client, and she'll take those and then she'll do her own, put them together. She just doesn't have the machine to embroidery right, so I'm doing that for her. And so those are the things that I have going on right now as far as finishes. Sorry about getting so close. You know, we do what we have to do, right, to get these floss tubes made. I do have some recent purchases. I have lots of patterns, more than I'll probably ever do. I'm right there with the sable stitchers, but that's just part of it. So I bought this recently. I saw it on somebody's floss tube, and my mother passed away not too long ago, and so I thought this would be a good one, although she does have a memory square on the Anniversaries of the Heart. I got this from 123 Stitch, and the reason I got it from 123 Stitch is because I could get the fancy floss with it, which I can't get locally. So I order from 123 Stitch when I do that, as one of the places that I order from. That's a combination of Simply Shaker and Gentle Arts floss. Another recent purchase is from Garon Stitchery, and he got this when he was at market, and he showed it the other day on his Flosstube My Stitching Box by Jeannette. Oh yeah, I wanted to do a Jeannette Douglas design ever since, I watch Annie the Proper Stitcher quite a bit, and she's always talking about Jeannette Douglas designs. And then I've heard a couple of Flosstubers recently talk about how nice it was. They went to a retreat with her and how nice she was, and I thought, well, I need to do a Jeannette Douglas design then, and so I got it. But also what made me get this particular one is that Garon Stitchery also had this. So Gary and Ronnie had showed this, and it's got the silk floss plus the little embellishments in it. And so there's the embellishments. I wanted to show you the embellishments. Really cute stuff. So here's the little, where are you at? Okay. Little scissors. There's little bitty, it's not coming out real. There's little bitty buttons in there. I'm gonna have to use a beading needle to put those buttons on because the buttons are so small. And then I've been messing with the floss, so it's, but the reason I'm messing with it is because I wanted to feel it. I've never done anything with silk floss before. And so, and it just feels, I find myself doing this, petting it, because it feels so silky and smooth. And so very definitely something that I'm not gonna wait too long to start this, especially since I've really been wanting to try silk floss. I've never stitched with it before. And so I'm excited about that. So another thing I got from Garon Stitchery, because they have the designer focus of the month, Carriage House samplings for the month of March. So I thought that's the perfect opportunity for me to buy a Hawk Run Hollow design. And I got the shores because, well, Corpus Christi, we live by the National Seashore. So we're actually 5 blocks from the bay, which is not the National Seashore, but it is the bay. And we really enjoy the bay and the shores, and so I thought that would be appropriate for me to stitch. So another one I don't want to wait a long time to stitch, but you know. By the way, when life is done, I didn't talk about this, Silver Creek samplers, influenced by a Flosstuber. Now that I've decided to be a Flosstuber, I will start trying to pay attention to that so I can give people credit but I didn't think I would need that information. So another influence, and I ordered this again from 123 Stitch because I could get is the red deer. I've already talked several times about deer, so you know they're a favorite of ours. And so I like red work also. And so I bought the red deer. Modern Folk Embroidery, a red deer sampler, LFB 1788. And so I really want to start this one too. I got it from 123 Stitch because they had the fancy flosses that go with it. And look at those colors. I'll have to get better at preparing these, but look at this purple with this red and these greens. I told you I love green, the gold. It's going to be a beautiful stitch. And so that's why I got it from 123 Stitch again, because I could get the fancy floss there, and it's not so overwhelming if I can order it from one place. I tend to get a little overwhelmed when I go into a big store. And I did get this one at the Attic in Phoenix, Mesa, Arizona, because I wanted something Arizona-ish. And you notice the Sunday mornings pattern? It was the skyline also, a different skyline. But this is Red Rock Crossing in Arizona. We like to go to Arizona because my daughter and son live there, and we get to hike, and we really enjoy the sunsets and getting out there and hike and stuff like that. So, and I did get this one because it does come with this particular one from Fireside Originals. The designer is Rosemary McAllister. It does come with the floss, the fancy floss. There's some DMC colors that I'll have to add on all of these kits, but if I can at least get the fancy floss, at least I'll have. And this one's a different kind of floss called Threadworks, THREADWORX, floss included. So they included those. There's, like I said, there's some DMC other colors that I will add to that. But it's kind of fun to stitch with those Arizona patterns because it reminds me of the times that I'm in Arizona. And so those are the things that I've purchased recently. I meant like in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Isn't this fun? This is what Gary and Ronnie send their patterns in, and I'm like, I have to save it. I figure my grandkids and I might be able to come up with something to do with this. So cheerful, so fun. Can't throw that away. Small business owners, love them. Love the special touches you get when you order from them. And so one more thing, I will reach. I do have this as a giveaway, as a sharing, I guess is what I should be calling it. Sharing this. It's a Noah's Ark sampler. And the reason I have 2 of these. And again, on my search when I first started stitching again, on my search for a local place to shop, Corpus Christi, well, the next local place is Texas. And when I was doing a search on Texas and cross stitch, well, I came across Margaret and Margaret from McKinney, Texas. And that's how I came across their designs. And they're kind of primitive, and they've got stockings, and here's some other of their samplers. They've got stockings and samplers, and I have quite a few of their patterns. And but I have 2 of these, and I thought, well, that would be a perfect sharing for people who view this video. And we're gonna just use the word ARK, A-R-K, as the word that I'll search if you're interested in receiving this pattern. www.margaretandmargaret.com. I don't know much about them. I've had these patterns for 3 or 4 years now, but I've never actually seen any Flosstubers, anyone talking about them. And for that reason, it's probably time for me to go ahead and start stitching one of these. And fairly simple design. I think that it's going to be fun to stitch. Nice border, alphabet, all the good things with the sampler. Right? The arc instead of a house, no house, but there's the arc. And then the animals. I love stitching animals. So anyway, I hope you will subscribe and like. I really want to get this thing started and see what this journey takes, see where this journey takes me, and who I get to meet and become friends with as a result of this journey. So thank you very much for watching. Go out, make some pretty things, and I will see you in 2 weeks.